Hi, I'm Maria Theoharis of Velosos on social media. Thanks for watching or listening to Sub 50 podcast on Organised Style. Rin is Tookiethings on Instagram. Tookiethings means small special things. If you follow Rin on Instagram, you'll enjoy watching her today or listening to her on the audio version of this podcast. Grab a cuppa and relax with us. You right, Rin?
I'm right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, lovely. Hello, Maria.
Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. There we go.
Yay. Thanks for coming onto the podcast for Sober 50 on Organized Style podcast. I'm really glad to actually see you like face to face because I only ever see you on Instagram, but you always look fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so lovely to meet you. You're the first person from Instagram that I've met in real life. Well, I know. And it's so exciting. Yeah, thank you.
That's okay. Now, tell me something. Do you have an art background? Because your photos are always spot on and the fabrics that you pick with the style, I think I'm a bit of a fan of yours. So can you explain the background to how you always look so great?
I think it's my mother. I think it really comes from my mother from a very early age. I grew up, she taught me to sew when I was very young, making dolls' clothes, and fabrics have always been that. I just love them. I love the colors, I love the prints, I love being able to feel them. And the photo thing, it's so interesting that you say that because for a long time I looked at Instagram and thought I didn't know that you could have an account and follow people without actually posting. But my son encouraged me because I said, I hate photos of myself. I hate taking photos. How am I going to do this? And he said, get a tripod and take your own. And that works really well for me. It's just me and the dog, and she always sneaks in. And I can then take photos that, I can take 10 and find one that I like. So not an actual art background, although when I was at Teachers College, my art was my subject that I did. I like that sort of side of things. I just like a bit of drama in a print or a fabric or a texture. Sometimes I get them home and think, why have I bought this? How am I going to sew it? But it just appeals to me.
And that makes sense because I'll see a fabric and I'll think, oh, I like that. And I mean, when you shop and find fabric, what I tend to do, and I don't know if you do the same, but you get the best out of the lot, whether it's a good or a bad lot. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. You just, sometimes fabric just speaks to you, doesn't it? And you get it home. Sometimes I think, why? I often go for velvet or like silk. And I think, where am I going that I'm wearing these things? But they're just beautiful. And yeah, it's a joy, I think, some of the fabrics. Even when I haven't made them up. My husband did say, I have to confess this. He said, are you going to confess that you have fabric in every drawer of this house? And I said, those are mainly remnants that I just want to keep, and you never know when they come in handy.
That's right. And I mean, you don't have to admit to anything because you sew and you love it.
Exactly. And the people who are listening understand that, I'm sure. Yep.
Now, when you get photobombed by your dog, does your dog like to be in photos, or is it just because you both have such a strong bond?
I think she honestly, when I get the tripod out of the cupboard, she's like, right, we're away. I was taking a photo the other day and she was still asleep, and I thought, oh good, I can get out and take someone. I went out the front of the house where she can't get, and then I saw this little paw sticking under the gate, and so she was in the photos. And one of the photos, which I didn't post, like she's practically on my knee, and I thought, well, you can't really see the shirt. There's just a dog here, but she just likes to be around, or especially sewing and photos.
Okay, well, that's great. You both have something in common.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, I've been admiring the top that you're wearing. Is that a new
Yes.
one?
No, it's I've had it. It's got really lovely sleeves. Can you
Yeah.
see?
Oh,
Yeah.
double ruffles.
Yeah, it's a simplicity pattern that I've had for a number of years, and when I posted it, some of my favorite makes at the end of the year from a couple of years ago, lots of people were, where is that pattern? And someone said they got the last pattern in the UK. This, yeah, so it's I've had it for a number of years, but yeah, the sleeves are so good. I want to make another one, and it's on my list of my very long list of things to make.
Wow. When
Yeah.
did you start sewing?
So I started sewing when I was about 7, making dolls' clothes, and as I said, my mother was a very good sewist. She really was an artist with her sewing, and one of my older sisters sews beautifully, and she's 7 years older than me, and I think it was that. I think that's why I love retro fabric so much, because that 7 year gap when she was making hot pants and red, white, and blue outfits, and I was just, she'd be 17 and I was 10, just thinking, oh, I want to be able to do that. So yeah, that real passion for sewing and seeing what you could create, it always amazes me that you can get a flat piece of fabric
Yeah.
and make something that fit. It's yeah. So it's been going a long time. There've been periods of time where I haven't done a lot of sewing.
Hmm.
I did start again when my children were young, loved sewing for them, and then had a bit of a gap, and now it's it's that creative thinking about it or doing it. I love it. Yeah, it's really good.
That's good. And so when now with your sewing, okay, do you plan what you make or do you just have a feeling? What drives you, Rin?
I do plan. I quite sort of I have Google Docs where I have, right, these are the possibilities, because I have to say, especially since I've started on Instagram, the fabric stash has increased exponentially, and the patterns, oh, that looks so good. You see someone wearing something and I save them. So I tend to I used to just sew in the school holidays because I'm a teacher, but now I tend to sew in the weekend. So I sort of map out the term and think, okay, I've got this many weeks. This is what I can manage, but it really goes to the plan that I have. But I still like to think, okay, these are the things that I'm might be able to achieve this term, and write them down, and then list all the, I see something, a pattern, I think, oh, that could work for that, and I write them all down, because sometimes I forget my thoughts.
It's good. It's good that you've got such organization behind your creativity.
Yeah, yeah, I like to have a bit of because sometimes I get overwhelmed and think, well, how am I going to, what am I going to do next? And so I like to have a bit of okay, these are the things that are
Mm,
a bit of a priority, and especially if I'm sewing for family or have a deadline, like
yes.
bridesmaids dresses for the girl, they had to be done by a certain time, so it's like, right, let's slot that in.
So just before you spoke about how, your fabric stash and your pattern stash is increasing exponentially because of people that you see online on Instagram. Is it because of all of the people that you follow who are of our age, or what influences you the most?
I think I love seeing, like, the So Over 50 community. I just find
Yeah.
it's so fabulous. It's so inclusive, and you just feel such a part of a real community. But I follow people of all ages, and I think too, fabric stores have increased, especially here in New Zealand. So sometimes it's the fabric that gets me first. You get that email of, like, here's the latest, and I go, oh, okay, here we go. So it's a bit of both. It's a bit of all of the above, really. But yeah. So sometimes seeing what other people have made, saving those, getting a fabric. I have to say, it's not very often where I actually think, oh, I need to make whatever it is, and then start planning. I tend to just collect and then work from my collection. Yeah.
Okay. Now, your background, like So your accent is New Zealand.
Yes. Yeah.
So whereabouts in New Zealand are you from?
So I'm a Southlander,
Yep.
which normally I don't think I roll my R's so much, but we normally do. But I'm living in Marlborough, at the top of the South Island now, have been for a few years. Yeah.
Yep.
Which is normally sunny. It's raining today, but yeah.
And Marlborough is known for its wine in the
Yes.
area. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also you've got the advantage of having decent summers and decent winters so that you can, if you like, I love making coats, but we rarely have really severe winters in Sydney, Australia, whereas I'm sure that you get longer winters than we do.
Absolutely. I'm a huge coat fan as well, especially being a Southlander where you tend to wear them many months of the year. But I love that layering. I love wearing a coat. So we absolutely do. It gets very cold in the winter here.
Mm.
So you definitely get that real change of season. And yeah, it's fun to be able to dress for that. I love it. So yeah.
So it's not just layers of fabric, it's layers of color for you based on what I've seen.
Yes, and it's really interesting because being a Southlander and that Southland Otago, I don't know if you know, but New Zealand Southland Otago has a very dark vibe. It's a very black
Hmm.
um, clothing, and I love that too. And I buy a lot of secondhand designer, New Zealand designer clothing, and so I do have a lot of black, but I tend to always wear a pop of color. I feel a lot better, I think,
Mm.
with color, and especially as I've gone grey, sometimes the black is a bit heavy, even though I still love it. But I definitely tend to do a lot more sewing of summer clothing because of the fabric and the colourful. Look at your gorgeous print that you're wearing today. Yeah.
I wore this for you because I know that you love color. And I thought, I
I love
need
it.
to match Rin so I don't look drab.
I love it. See that? Yeah. That's just yeah. I love a print. It's just yeah.
Thanks, Rin. You just made my day again.
How good.
So on the podcast Instagram account, I've been putting up tutorials for people to learn how to use various aspects of Instagram. Do you get asked how do you do XYZ on Instagram from other followers?
No, no, I tend to get more questions about the like the sewing, the pattern,
Yep.
things like that. But I have to say that that's where Sew Over 50 has helped me so much. In fact, recently I don't post to stories very often, but I did, and I didn't like the colours that were on the photo at the top and the bottom. You know how they
Yeah, yeah.
and so I googled how to change it, but I couldn't find anything, so I posted it as it was. And then I was going through my saved Instagram posts and saw the Sew Over 50 how to change the colors on your stories, and I was like, there we go. Like, I find there's so many things. Sandy's your podcast with Sandy about the hashtags.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, those things that I don't understand so much. I mean, yeah. So I'm learning a lot about the whole Instagram process, and I've learned so much from Sew Over 50 with that. Very, very helpful.
Oh, that's good. That story that Sandy did on color was so, like changing color on stories, was so well received by hundreds of people. She got such good feedback, and that's actually a good one to save. And
Yes.
yeah, I encourage, viewers and listeners to go to the stories on Sober 50 just for that.
Oh, exactly. Because as I said, I Googled it, not remembering that I'd saved the post, and I
Yeah.
couldn't find anything that told me, with a quick Google search how to do it. So I just thought, oh, well, that's it. It's just, and it wasn't the colors I wanted at all.
Yeah. If you were to talk to your younger self about sewing, what would be the one thing you would advise yourself to focus on? So, Rin, who was a teenager, what would you have said to her? Hey, listen, focus on X, Y, and Z for your sewing life.
I think, and these are my mother's words coming back to me, but
Yeah.
it's always have an iron set up, because you can't sew without that iron there pressing as you go. I think know what works for you. Like my mother always used to say, hold the fabric, hold the bolt of fabric in the shop up against you, because I have sometimes failed with that, where I've made something because I love sort of mustardy colors and they really don't work with me. And I made this beautiful velvet shirt and I was like, that does not work. I should have done my mother's trick of actually making sure. I think, before I buy, really thinking about, is it going to work for me? Is it going to work in what I want it to make it for? Will it wash well? Will it,
Yeah.
Because we know, don't we, that sometimes they just don't quite do what you want them to do. So I think that, and just keep sewing. Yeah, the joy of it is very real for so many of us. So.
And was there one particular sewing technique that you have learnt over the years that has really upped your game or given you a lot of confidence to keep going?
I think my mother taught me well early on, although I found out from my sister-in-law that my mother told my sister-in-law that she often used to unpick what my sister and I had made at night and re-sew it. So I was obviously not quite as good as I thought I was from an early age. But she certainly taught me the techniques pretty early on. I like I've seen like your beautiful Chanel inspired jacket. I tend to make things that are a bit faster and easier and looser. I don't like to get too caught up in the techniques. I'm more of a let's get it made and let's hope it. Yeah. So I think just practice for sure. And one of the things, actually, having a walking foot. I bought a walking foot a few years ago, and that's changed things so much. I was trying to make a faux leather skirt and had baking paper on top, and it just was a disaster. And when I bought it, the woman said, "You'll probably use this, for a lot of your sewing." And I thought, as if, but now it lives on the machine. So that walking foot has definitely changed things for me.
And that walking foot is probably something your mother should have given you and your sister, so she wouldn't have had to have been unpicking your seams at night.
Exactly. She didn't have one at that stage, but because I use a lot of, slippery viscose. Well, this is a silk, but, those slippery fabrics, and they really do move on you, don't they, without something to hold them in place.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep going back to what your mother did. That is so lovely of her to fix everything for both of you without you knowing, just to keep you going.
Exactly, because I was thinking about Mum, I think, with having the podcast, and I made, but really my mother helped me made. It was a Vogue 4-piece corded velvet suit when I was 18. So it was the skirt, the pants, the waistcoat, the jacket, and it was really, it was all lined, and there were welt pockets, and my word, she was sitting beside me all the way, and I imagine she did quite a bit of unpicking of that suit, but it really was. I remember even my brother commenting that my suit looked really good, so that didn't happen very often. So.
No, brothers don't do that normally.
No, they don't. But it was, and those were the techniques that she really did instill in me from early, and having that older sister who, she's much better at those techniques than me. So, yeah.
So these days, are there ways that you sew that have been influenced by, the point I'm getting to is, do you have to deal with things like chronic pain or any of those sorts of things? Because sometimes that's what we deal with as you get older, or I don't know. I'm just asking.
I do, actually. I've had a lot of concussions for about 10 years ago. I hit my car boot on my head, foolishly didn't step back, and it took about 9 months to recover. And then in the last possibly 5 years, I keep hitting my head. The doctor said, just be aware, but I really don't have that visual spatial. I've hit it when I've been down at school to plug in the computer and hit it on the corner of the monitor. And of course, the more you do it, the ironing boards fell on me at school one day, just all those things. So I do deal with a lot of concussion or, post-concussion sort of brain trauma, I guess. And so sometimes I just have to, I just can't do that. But so I think that's why it's such a joy when I can, because I can sit, which is good, because sometimes the moving or the walking, and it just, when I get to the stage where I'm feeling well enough again to sew, it's such a whew, I can do something again. And it just, it's really good for that, because, it's, there are things, aren't there, that as we get older, they just,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, even simple things like, when you're sewing with black in the middle of winter, you need extra lights, and then decide that, hang on a second, after 10 o'clock at night, you need to put it down.
Exactly.
And these days, probably 9 o'clock at night, because you're going to be unpicking the next day.
Exactly. I'm in the process of making a dress at the moment, and it's a sort of a royal blue linen, and I took it outside in the light to see which was the right side and which was the wrong side, and I started sewing, and it's got a slight luster, and it was only because the lamp was shining on it that I went, oh, I've cut this out upside down. So I had to flip it all. Just, I used to be like that. I could only sew at night, and now I have the lamp right beside me. My sewing room's not that well lit, and very much I stopped sewing a lot earlier at night than I used to, because I just had to clean my I use reading glasses for sewing, and I thought, I really can't see these stitches, and I thought perhaps I should clean my glasses. Amazingly, it helped.
Yeah, I know. You have to remind yourself.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I must find, because I teach textiles technology, the sewing side, I can't, because of my concussions, I can't sit my reading glasses on my head, just when I'm not wearing them, because it hurts. So I don't have a pocket. I'm always saying to the kids, where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? So I've decided I need to make like a little pouch just to carry them, because otherwise they are also much, kids handing them to me never helps the cleanliness process either, with their fingers on the lenses.
Yeah. Talking about your students, what are the things that motivate them to sew?
I've taught seniors, and they tend to be, that was at a girls' school, so they tended to be really wanting that creative side of things. Now I teach year 7 and 8, so 11, 12-year-olds, and they come to our technology centre. They do a range of technology. So in year 7, they just they all get to experience it, and I have to say it's particularly the boys that get so excited about it. I had a couple last year of these 11-year-old boys that were like, oh, this is fun, I'm going to go home and sew. And another little boy said, oh, so am I. And they said, let's get together and sew. And I just thought, isn't that just beautiful? Like, they just, I think they love that, creating something they didn't know that they could do.
Yeah.
And they get on a machine, and they're often a bit scared, and they just love, here's something I've made. And the year 8s tend to, last year we were making bucket hats, or we've made shorts, something that they can wear. That's a real motivator for that age.
They're building something with their hands.
Exactly.
That's exactly.
Exactly. And they go, oh, I didn't think I'd enjoy this, or I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And it's really fun.
Sounds wonderful. It's a great environment to be in.
It is. It's great.
So was there anything that you wanted to mention before we finish up this recording?
I think just maybe if you're thinking about going on Instagram, or you're just, it's just, I find it amazing how positive and supportive, and there's so many creative people like us out there, and it is a real joy. I love seeing what other people are doing. I find people so, like, social media can be so sort of nasty, but this creative community is just so positive and generous, sharing their skills and their time and their talent. So yeah, if you're thinking about it and you've been a bit nervous, I'd say just go for it. It's great.
People are still worried about their own privacy. There's nothing wrong with having a private account where you can
Absolutely.
observe. It just means that if you're in challenges, you won't be seen, but it gives people the opportunity to, put their toe in the water and just
Exactly.
test what it's like.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I like that. I like that there's the two options. So yeah.
And if you've got a family account, which is private, you can have a sewing account as well. You can have more than one. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Rin, thank you for coming onto the podcast today and for agreeing to be on the video version as well as the audio version. This is something that I'm hoping that viewers and listeners will enjoy in 2025. And thank you for sharing your time, your experience, and your enthusiasm for sewing.
Oh, look! Thank you so much. It's so lovely to meet you, and it's so lovely to be here. This is exciting.
Thank you for being part of the Sub 50 community.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Maria.
This episode of So Organised Style podcast for Sober 50 was video and audio produced by me, Maria, in my sewing room with permission of Rin. Sound by bensound.com. This year, I'll feature a number of guests that many of you suggested last year. Fingers crossed I can get all of your suggested guests on the podcast this year. Make sure you direct message Sandy on Sober 50 to support their challenges and guest posts. If you'd like to support the production of So Organised Style podcast, pop over to Patreon. A few dollars each month covers the costs of providing this podcast for you for free. Go back through the podcast archive to hear and see more people from the sewing community. There are over 450 episodes to listen to. I look forward to being with you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.